I'll never forget the sound of her voice when she called the cops on me. My stepmom stood in the kitchen with her phone in hand, smirking as she told the dispatcher that I had threatened her children. All because I said no to babysitting them for free. I'd just finished a double shift at the diner and had finals the next morning. I was running on maybe 3 hours of sleep and enough caffeine to kill a horse. But when I tried explaining, she just laughed and said, "Cry me a river, Ash. You're not the first person to have a job and a life." I didn't answer. I didn't even trust myself to. Because if I opened my mouth, I think I might have screamed. That was 2 months ago. Last week, she spotted me in the parking lot of a Walmart. I was walking out with my backpack slung over my shoulder, and as soon as our eyes met, she floored the gas and drove off without a word. You might think this is a normal evil stepmom story. It isn't. The truth goes back years, to the day my entire life was ripped out from under me. I was 6 months old when my foster parents found me. They were kids themselves, barely 18, living with their own parents, no money, no plan. And yet, when they saw a baby wrapped in a blanket, abandoned in a public restroom in Boise, Idaho, they didn't hesitate. They fought tooth and nail to keep me. For more than a decade, they gave me the kind of love most kids only dream about. Homemade birthday cakes, bedtime stories, Saturday morning pancakes, all of it. They weren't perfect, but they were mine. And then my 12th birthday came. The knock on the door sounded like any other, but when my dad opened it, 2 social workers barged in. They didn't even say happy birthday. Instead, they sat me down and started firing questions. Does your foster dad ever touch you? Has he ever been rough with you? Are you sure? No matter how many times I said no, they just leaned in closer. One even accused me of lying, saying I was too scared to admit the truth. I'll never forget it. One of the male workers grabbed my wrist so hard I winced, and my dad, my sweet, calm dad, lunged forward to pull him off me. And that was it. That one movement, that one protective instinct, was all they needed to twist the narrative. See, they said. He's violent. He's dangerous. Before I even knew what was happening, they were dragging me into their car. My birthday balloons were still tied to the mailbox as we sped away. We drove for 3 hours before stopping at a massive, sterile-looking house in Spokane. The new foster parents introduced themselves as Mark and Linda, though they might as well have said warden and guard. The first thing they did was take my phone and wipe it clean. "New chapter," Linda said with this tight smile that didn't reach her eyes. She led me upstairs to a room directly next to their 4-year-old daughter Emily's nursery. Emily had severe asthma, and within 5 minutes of meeting me, Linda handed me her medicine schedule and showed me how to use a nebulizer. "Family helps family," she said, almost like it was an order. That night, instead of cake and candles, they dressed me in designer clothes that made my skin itch and dragged me to their country club gala. Every time I scratched at the rash spreading across my arms, Linda slapped a Band-Aid over it and whispered, "Smile." At the gala, they paraded me around like some trophy. "This is our foster daughter. Saved from an abusive, neglectful home," they told everyone. And when people asked about my bandaged arms, they nodded solemnly, hinting it was my old foster parents who had done it. The bile rose in my throat, but I kept smiling. Because I already knew, one wrong word would cost me. The next morning, I asked if I could go back to my old house to grab my things. Linda's hand cracked across my face so hard my ears rang. "Say their names again," she hissed, "and I'll make it worse." From that moment on, the rules were clear. My old life didn't exist. My parents didn't exist. Boise didn't exist. There was only Mark and Linda, their rules, and their story. School started the following week. A fancy private academy, all uniforms, and pristine hallways. I liked the kids, but I wasn't allowed to talk to them. Mark and Linda kept my phone locked away in their office, claiming it was for my own good. After school, instead of clubs or friends, I was shoved back into the role of full-time babysitter. I begged them to let me join chess club, just one lunch break a week. But Mark scoffed and said, "Chess isn't for girls." That's when I knew something was deeply wrong. Because the clothes, the punishments, the lies, none of that compared to the way Mark looked at me when his business friends came over. He made me wear this specific outfit, a too-short skirt, knee-high socks, and a white shirt so tight it clung to me. My job was to serve drinks while grown men stared and made comments about me blossoming. And Mark? He just smiled. It was around then that I overheard some kids talking about the state orchestra championships. They were being held downtown, at the pavilion, and my foster brother, the one from my real family, was performing with his school. My heart nearly exploded. If I could just get there, maybe I could see him, talk to him, beg him to tell Mom and Dad where I was. So I asked Linda at dinner, trying to sound casual, like it was just some fun outing. Her fork froze halfway to her mouth. Her eyes went cold. "We're going to Aspen that week," she said flatly. "You'll be home. With Emily." When I stammered that I was scared to stay alone, Mark leaned back in his chair, grinning. "You won't be alone. My poker buddies will be here to keep you company." My stomach dropped. I already knew exactly what that meant. And as bad as things had gotten, that wasn't even the worst of it. Not even close. That week was hell. Emily's asthma attacks meant I was up every 4 hours, strapping a tiny mask over her face while she whimpered and cried for her mom. And while I was half asleep trying to keep her breathing, Mark's poker friends made themselves comfortable in my room. I don't even want to describe what they did. But I'll never forget the weight of their hands, the smell of whiskey on their breath, the way one of them whispered, "We've waited long enough for this." And I couldn't scream. Couldn't fight. Because in that house, cameras were everywhere, and the people who were supposed to protect me were the same ones selling me out. By day 4, I couldn't take it anymore. My body ached, my head spun, and I felt like I was disappearing. While Linda was out running errands, I swiped Emily's iPad and locked myself in the laundry room. My hands shook so bad I could barely type, but I found Facebook, created a fake account, and searched until I saw the names I'd been praying for. My parents. I typed until my fingers cramped, telling them about Emily's medicine schedule, about the friends who came over, about the cameras. Begging them to help me. To my shock, they answered within an hour. "We never stopped fighting for you," they wrote. "We're getting lawyers. Hold on. We'll get you back." For 3 days, I held on to that sliver of hope like it was oxygen. And then Mark and Linda came home early. At dinner, Mark's eyes lingered on me too long. Then he set Emily's iPad down on the table. "Found something interesting," he said casually. My fork clattered to the plate. My heart dropped into my stomach. I tried to play dumb, but he grabbed me by the hair and dragged me upstairs like I was trash. He shoved me into the closet and locked the door. No food, no water, no light. Just me, the dark, and the sound of my own heartbeat crashing in my ears. When the door finally creaked open 12 hours later, I thought maybe they decided to let it go. But instead, I was yanked out into the hallway where a faint buzzing filled the air. I froze. New cameras blinked red from every corner, even in the bathroom. Even in the shower. "Play stupid games, win stupid prizes," Linda sneered. She shoved her iPad in my face, an article already open. Local foster parents arrested for child sexual assault. Children removed from home. It was about my real mom and dad. Her smile was poisonous. "Go ahead," she said. "Text them again. I'm sure they'll answer, from prison." I broke right there. Tears streamed down my face, my body shaking with quiet sobs. But they didn't care. They didn't even blink. For hours later, they were strutting into another charity gala, using me as a prop to polish their reputations, trashing my parents' names like it was some kind of sport. That night, lying awake in that house wired with cameras and lies, I realized something. If no one could save me, I'd have to save myself. The next morning, I slipped out of bed before dawn. I grabbed nothing, no toothbrush, no clothes, not even shoes. Just my trembling body and the last ounce of courage I had. And I ran. Down the hall, out the door, barefoot across the freezing lawn. I sprinted through the dark until I saw it, the glowing sign of a police station. I shoved open the doors, still in my pajamas, hair tangled, skin blotched with bruises. The first officer I saw, I ran to him, rambling everything. The cameras. The poker nights. Emily's treatments. The article about my parents. At first, his face was horrified. He even leaned in, like he was about to pull me behind the counter. But then I said their names. Mark and Linda Peterson. And his expression changed instantly. Like a switch had been flipped. "Wait here," he said coldly, stepping into the back office. 20 minutes later, Mark and Linda walked right through the front doors, all smiles. The police chief hugged Mark like they were old buddies. "This is just a misunderstanding," Mark explained smoothly. "You know how teenagers can be. Hormones, anxiety, acting out. No amount of crying, begging, explaining changed anything." Within the hour, I was back in their car, the station fading in the rearview mirror. "You're screwed now," Mark whispered, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. The ride back was silent except for Emily's raspy breathing from her car seat. My face pressed against the cold window as the last flicker of safety disappeared behind me. When we got home, Mark yanked me out of the car like I was nothing more than luggage. He shoved me into the living room, where cameras blinked from every corner like watchful, red eyes. Then he dropped a notepad in my lap. Scrawled across the top, new rules. No leaving the house without them. No speaking to anyone at school. No electronics. No windows after dark. Linda added more. Wake up at 5 a.m. Sharp. Cook every meal. Clean the house top to bottom daily. Care for Emily around the clock. Sleep only between 10 p.m. and 5 a.m. She underlined the last one twice, then shoved the pen into my hand. "Sign it." I did. And watched as Mark locked it into a folder already stuffed thick with documents labeled with my name. I'd thought I was a prisoner before. But this was a cage. And I hadn't even seen the worst of it yet. Not even close. The new routine started immediately. At 5 a.m. My alarm shrieked. I stumbled into the kitchen, hands shaking as I cracked eggs for Mark, exactly over medium. Toast for Linda, light brown only. Oatmeal for Emily, allergy-safe and bland. I moved like a robot, swallowing my exhaustion, pretending I didn't notice the camera light blinking above the fridge. At 6 on the dot, Mark appeared in his pressed shirt and tie. He sat at the table like a king while I stood at attention. One bite of his eggs, and his jaw tightened. "They're runny," he said. Then he scraped the whole plate into the trash. Again. By the time I got it right, my hands were trembling so badly I almost burned myself on the pan. School should have been my escape. But now, Mark personally drove me there, walked me inside like I was 5 years old, and spoke to the principal behind closed doors. When they came out, the principal gave me this strange, pitying look, like I'd already been labeled. Kids tried talking to me in class, but I kept my head down. At lunch, I sat alone in the library, stomach growling because Linda had forgotten to pack me food. The librarian noticed once. She offered me a pack of saltine crackers from her desk. For a second, I almost told her everything. Almost. But then I pictured the cameras back home, Mark scrolling through footage like a hawk. Somehow, I knew they'd find out. So I smiled weakly, took the crackers, and swallowed the truth. That night, Emily had another asthma episode. I crouched beside her tiny bed, holding the mask against her face while she coughed and wheezed. She reached for Linda, crying "Mommy, Mommy," but Linda just stood in the doorway with her arms crossed. "Hold it tighter," she snapped at me. "You're doing it wrong." Emily's tears soaked through my shirt, and something twisted inside me. She was just a little girl. None of this was her fault. And yet, she was another chain holding me in this house. Later that night, as I scrubbed the kitchen counters raw, my mind drifted back to when I was 10, back in Boise, back with my real parents. There was this one afternoon where I got second place in a local chess tournament. Just second. I remember crying in the backseat of my dad's car, holding my little silver trophy like it was garbage. He pulled over, turned to me, and said, "Ash, do you know what second place means?" I sniffled. That I wasn't good enough. He laughed. Not in a mean way, in a warm, booming way that shook the car. No. It means you tried. It means you fought. And it means you'll be back next time even stronger. That night, he taught me how to defend against the Sicilian opening, using bottle caps and sugar packets at the diner booth. My mom slid milkshakes in front of us and kissed my forehead like I'd just won the world championship. That was my family. That was love. And now here I was, scrubbing someone else's crumbs while a camera recorded my every move, my parents rotting in prison for crimes they didn't commit. Friday night, the poker crowd came back. Mark laid out the outfit on my bed, the same skirt, but shorter this time. The shirt even tighter. I changed in the closet, my hand shaking so hard I could barely button it. When I stepped out, Mark stood there, adjusting my collar with his thick fingers lingering on my neck. "Smile," he said softly. His friends arrived at 8, louder and drunker than before. I carried trays of whiskey and chips while their eyes followed me around the room. One grabbed my wrist when I bent to pour his drink, yanking me closer. "Pretty little thing," he slurred. I froze. Mark didn't stop him. He didn't say a word. Another hand brushed against my back as I passed. My skin crawled, but I forced my face blank. Midnight came, and they finally stumbled out. Mark sat back, counting his winnings, the stack of cash thick in his hands. He didn't look at me once. Just pocketed the money and went upstairs, leaving me to clean the glasses until my fingers wrinkled in the water. That night, lying in bed, I stared at the blinking red light in the corner of the ceiling. The camera saw everything, except inside the closet. That tiny, cramped space was the only place they couldn't reach. But I knew it wouldn't last. Because when monsters realize you found a hiding place, they always take it away. And sure enough, the next morning, I heard the whine of a drill. By lunchtime, there was a new camera in my closet. My last safe space was gone. And I realized something that made my stomach turn cold. I hadn't hit rock bottom yet. Not even close. By Sunday morning, the house didn't even feel like a house anymore. It was a prison with walls that blinked red. The closet camera wasn't the end of it. That same afternoon, Mark drilled new locks onto every window. The security system was updated so it beeped whenever a door opened, even for a second. The knives in the kitchen were locked away in drawers I couldn't open. "This is for your safety," Linda told me with that cold smile. But we both knew what it really was. It was for control. That night, Emily had her worst attack yet. Her chest rattled like she was drowning, her lips turning blue. I followed the instructions on her chart, did everything right, but nothing was working. "Call 911. I begged. Linda shoved me aside and fumbled with the nebulizer while Emily's tiny hands clawed at the air. At last, Linda grabbed the phone and dialed. The paramedics rushed in, worked fast, and whisked Emily to the hospital. And in the chaos, they forgot about me. For the first time in months, I was left alone in that house. My heart pounded. This was my chance. But then my eyes shot up to the cameras, their little red lights burning into me. Even if I ran, there'd be footage. Even if I hid, they'd know. So instead, I searched. I crept into Mark's office, staying in the blind spots I'd mapped out while cleaning. My hand shook as I pulled open drawers, flipped through papers. That's when I found it. A folder with my name on it. Inside were forged documents, false medical records, fake psychiatric reports, even a statement from a doctor saying I was manipulative and unstable. My stomach turned. This was their insurance policy. Their proof that I was nothing but a liar. But beneath that folder, I found something worse. Photos. Not just of me, but of other girls. Dozens. Some looked my age. Some younger. All with the same haunted eyes, the same staged family event smiles. I dropped the stack like it burned me. My hands clawed at my face, desperate to wake up from this nightmare. But I didn't wake up. Because it was real. And I wasn't the first. They came home at 2 a.m., exhausted but furious. Emily was stable, but still hospitalized. And somehow, they managed to blame me for not catching it sooner. Maybe we should take your door off, Linda hissed, her eyes glinting. Mark's hand clamped around my wrist. Maybe we should take more than that. The next morning, I woke up to find exactly that. My bedroom door was gone. No privacy. No safety. No barrier. Just an open doorway with a camera staring straight in. That night, Mark's poker friends came back. Louder. Drunker. Bolder. One of them followed me into the kitchen while I was carrying a tray of glasses. He cornered me against the counter, his breath hot with alcohol, his hand brushing my face. I froze. My whole body locked up. Mark appeared in the doorway. For one hopeful second, I thought he'd stop it. But he just smirked. Hurry up with those drinks. And walked away. Later, as I lay in Emily's room listening to the wheeze of her nebulizer, my chest burned with rage. I thought of my dad teaching me chess, telling me that second place just meant I'd be stronger next time. I thought of my mom, braiding my hair before school, saying, "Don't ever let anyone tell you you're small." And I realized they hadn't broken me. Not yet. If they could lie, so could I. If they could watch, I could wait. I studied the house like it was a chessboard. Every move, every habit, every blind spot. Mark bragged about his meetings, about investors in Chicago. Linda was careless when she was tired. The cameras overlapped, but not perfectly. And people always had weaknesses. Even monsters. I just had to survive long enough to find theirs. 2 weeks later, Mark announced his trip. A whole week in Chicago. Which meant only Linda. Which meant less eyes. Which meant, maybe, just maybe, a chance. I told myself to be patient, to keep playing their game. But inside, my heart hammered with the rhythm of one thought. If I didn't get out soon, I was going to die in that house. When Mark left for Chicago, I thought I'd finally be able to breathe. But Linda was worse without him. More cruel, more desperate to prove she was in control. She added new rules daily: no sitting down except at meals, no water without permission, no bathroom more than 3 times a day. I was drowning in exhaustion. But I held on, because every day Mark was gone, I was one move closer to checkmate. And then something happened I didn't expect. A new man showed up at the door. Mid-20s, soft voice, kind eyes. His name was Ryan, and Mark had hired him to check the cameras while he was away. At first, I thought it was another trap. Another one of Mark's men. But Ryan didn't hover like the others. He didn't leer. He watched the cameras, frowned, and then, almost casually, asked me how long I'd been there. When I told him, his jaw clenched. That night, after Linda went to bed, Ryan whispered that sometimes cameras malfunction. He said tomorrow there might be blind spots. I barely slept. Was this real? Or another cruel test? The next morning, half the cameras went dark. Ryan muttered about technical issues for Linda's benefit, but I saw the truth in his eyes. For the first time in months, there were places in the house where no red light blinked. And I knew this was my chance. 2 days later, Linda left to stay overnight at the hospital with Emily. It was just me and Ryan. He handed me a burner phone, told me to hide it, and said, "Tomorrow, we run." But fate has a sick sense of humor. Because the next morning, as I stuffed the evidence I'd collected into my pocket, fake documents, photos of other kids, the proof of everything, I heard the garage door rumble. Mark was home. 2 days early. Ryan shoved me into the pantry's blind spot just as Mark's heavy footsteps echoed down the hall. His voice boomed through the house. "Ash? Where are you?" Ryan tried to cover, babbling about camera repairs. But Mark wasn't buying it. He stalked through the rooms, closer and closer. I pressed myself against the wall, every muscle screaming with fear. He opened the pantry door. His eye swept once. Twice. Stopped. And then Linda's voice rang through his phone. Emily was in critical condition. Mark swore, slammed the door shut, and bolted out. His tires screeched down the driveway. Ryan yanked me out. "Now. We go now." We ran. Out the back, into his car, down the highway. My heart pounded so hard I thought I'd pass out. Mark called. Again and again. Ryan ignored it. But then my burner phone buzzed in my pocket. Somehow, Mark had my number. I turned it off, my hand shaking so bad I nearly dropped it. By the time we hit the city, one of Mark's poker friends was already tailing us. Then another. We swerved through traffic, took side streets, doubled back. Still, they followed. Finally, 3 blocks from the federal building Ryan was trying to reach, traffic ground to a halt. Construction. Cars crawling. No way forward. Ryan looked at me. We run. We grabbed the evidence and bolted from the car, weaving between honking vehicles. Behind us, doors slammed. Boots pounded pavement. The glass doors of the federal building loomed ahead like salvation. We sprinted up the steps as men's voices roared behind us. And then security guards blocked them. We were inside. Safe, at least for now. On the 7th floor, a woman in a navy suit waited. Agent Jennifer Powell. She'd been undercover for years, building a case against Mark and Linda. And the evidence in my hands was the missing piece. When I laid it all out, the forged reports, the photos of other kids, the payments to officials, her jaw set like steel. "This ends now," she said. And for the first time in years, I believed her. Mark was arrested at a private airfield trying to flee. Linda was dragged out of the hospital in handcuffs. Their assets were frozen. Their friends scattered like cockroaches. Emily was placed with a medical foster family who actually cared for her. Her breathing improved within weeks. And me? I was finally reunited with my real parents. The ones who'd found me in that restroom as a baby. The ones who never stopped fighting for me, even from a jail cell. The reunion was messy and tear-stained and perfect. My dad's hair was grayer, my mom's hands shook, but their eyes were the same. They pulled me into their arms like they'd never let go again. And I knew they wouldn't. Life isn't magically fixed. I still wake up some nights expecting to see a red light blinking in the corner. Still catch myself flinching when someone raises their voice. But every morning I get to make my own breakfast, lock my own door from the inside, choose my own clothes. It feels like winning a war. Because I did win. They thought they'd broken me. They thought they'd buried me in lies and cameras and rules. But I survived. And survival is the sweetest revenge.